What if when you open your eyes tomorrow, the world had shifted? You'd wake not to birdsong or sunlight, but to tremors, slow, rhythmic pulses shaking the ground beneath your bed. At first, you'd think it was your own heartbeat echoing through your chest, until you realized it wasn't coming from within you, but from beneath you. The sound deepens, a muffled boom, then another. The walls tremble. Dust trickles from the ceiling. You rise, heart pounding, and move toward the window. Outside, nothing looks familiar. The trees that once lined the hills now look like reeds, snapped, crushed, reduced to splinters beneath something vast. The horizon itself seems to move, bending under the weight of enormous shadows that crawl across the land. And then, you hear it. A sound like thunder, drawn out and alive. It's a footstep. You step outside, still half asleep, and the sky feels wrong. Too close, as if pressing down upon you. There's a smell in the air. Wet stone, metal, and something else. The scent of ancient dust disturbed after ages of silence. In the distance, they move. Figures so colossal that their outlines distort the landscape itself. They walk slowly, deliberately. Their movements measured like tides. Their shadows fall upon mountains and valleys alike, swallowing light, drowning the world beneath their stride. They are not gods. They are not men. They are something between, born of heaven and earth and cursed by both. The Hebrew scriptures call them the Nephilim. Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, when the sons of God went into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men of old, men of renown. But renown is a human word, a way to make horror sound noble, because what stood before mankind was not heroic. It was predatory. The Book of Enoch, an ancient text long banned from canon, describes their birth with chilling precision. It says these were the offspring of the Watchers, angels who defied divine law, descending to take human women as wives. Their children, the giants, were 3,000 ells tall, over 9,000 feet, numbers that seem impossible, until you imagine standing beneath one. Their footsteps created valleys, their breath stirred winds, and their hunger was endless. At first, they devoured the harvest of men, fields, orchards, herds, consumed in a single season. Then, when nothing was left, they turned on the people themselves. Imagine watching from the ruins of your home as one of them kneels. Its face is lost to the clouds, but its hands descend, fingers thicker than ancient oaks. You hear the air split as it moves, and then silence. A pause, then screams. They pluck your neighbors like insects, studying them, then consuming them whole. You watch, paralyzed, as a shadow swallows everything you've ever known. This is not mythology. This is memory, the echo of an age erased by fear. You hide. You survive the day. But what then? How do you live in a world built for giants? Every well is a canyon. Every tool is a weapon you can't lift. The houses of this new world? Their doors taller than watchtowers, their steps carved from mountains, are monuments to a civilization that was never meant for you. When you walk among the ruins, you realize something unsettling. These places exist. Stonehenge, Baalbek, Puma Punku, foundations of stone so vast that modern cranes cannot move them. Blocks weighing 800 tons, fitted with a precision you could not replicate today. Historians call them mysteries, but now you understand. they were not meant for us. The Book of Jubilees whispers a single, haunting line. In those days, injustice increased on the earth, and all flesh corrupted its way. The giants were not merely tall. They were gods in appetite and demons in soul. And to them, mankind was not a species, but a resource. Day by day, the world shrank beneath their dominion. Villages became anthills. Cities became nests of prey. The earth itself groaned under their weight, its soil soaked with the blood of what they consumed. And yet the worst of it wasn't the killing. It was the laughter. Imagine waking each morning to that sound. Laughter like thunder rolling over the hills. The sound of joy, not malice. Because to them, this was play. You, the running, screaming, hiding thing. You were the game. The Hebrew word Hamas, used in Genesis, means more than violence. It means cruelty without purpose, destruction for pleasure. That's what filled the earth in those days. When the giants grew bored, they created sport. They'd chase humans for miles, not to eat them, but to hear them scream. They'd drop boulders into valleys just to watch the earth collapse. And when one of them died, its fall shattered mountains. This was the world before the flood, a world where heaven's mistakes ruled the ground, and humanity cowered beneath their feet. The silence that followed was not peace. It was aftermath. When the giants finished their feast of nations, they did not stop. They built, not for shelter, not for beauty, but for dominion. The world itself was reshaped into their image. Imagine walking across a plain where the very earth has been carved to fit their feet. Terraces of stone taller than your tallest buildings. Roads so wide that you could march an army across and never reach the other side. They raised temples that touched the clouds and altars that bled fire. Their tools were not tools. They were declarations. At Baalbek, in the heart of ancient Lebanon, lie the trilithons. 3 stones so vast that modern engineers still stare at them in disbelief. Each weighs over 800 tons. A fourth, the stone of the pregnant woman, sits abandoned in the quarry, carved but never moved. It weighs over 1,200 tons, larger than any machine on Earth could lift today. To humans, such stones are impossible. But to the giants, they were merely convenient. If you look closely at these ancient sites, you'll notice something unsettling: a dual architecture. The lower layers, colossal, seamless, eternal, are perfect beyond measure. The upper ones, built later by men, are crude by comparison. It's as if 2 species had shared the same earth, one divine in scale, the other desperate to imitate. And the farther you travel, the more these patterns emerge. In Peru, the fortress of Sacsayhuamán, its stones cut like puzzle pieces, locked together without mortar. In Egypt, beneath the sands, granite blocks carved so precisely that even a razor blade cannot pass between them. In Bolivia, Puma Punku, fragments of a city seemingly sliced with machines we do not possess. Modern archaeology calls them mysteries of craftsmanship. But to those who remember the stories, they are monuments to the giants' dominion. Remnants of a time when man lived in the shadow of things too vast to understand. As the centuries unfolded, the giants' creations became their prisons. Their monuments stood long after their kind faded, whispering to the ages, "We were here." But beneath those stones, the truth was darker. The Book of Jubilees tells us that injustice increased on the earth, and that all flesh corrupted its way. It wasn't only the giants who changed. Humanity began to mirror them. What you worship, you become. What you fear, you imitate. Humans began to build on a smaller scale the things their tyrants had made. They copied the great towers, the idols, the art of domination. The shadow of the giants did not end with their bodies. It lived on in the minds of men. And so, the age of oppression deepened. Imagine a world where the sky is never quiet. Every dawn begins with tremors, not from earthquakes, but from the footsteps of creatures whose laughter rolls like storms across the valleys. You hear it before you see them, deep, rhythmic, cruelly joyous. They are playing again. To the giants, mankind had become entertainment, fragile pieces in a game of suffering. A misstep, a roar, a swing of a colossal arm, and an entire village vanished. The Hebrew word Hamas, violence, was not meant for battles or bloodshed alone. It described the kind of cruelty that strips life of meaning. A violence born of boredom. Picture it. You wake to laughter echoing across the mountains. You hide among stones, heart pounding, as the sound grows closer. The ground shakes with rhythm, not random, but deliberate. The shadows lengthen, and then you see it, a silhouette blotting out the sky. It bends down. You can feel the air move as its hand descends, each finger thicker than the trees that surround you. A voice like thunder speaks, but you cannot understand the words. You don't need to. The tone is amusement. To this being, your terror is entertainment. This was daily life under giant rule. A life not of survival, but of endurance. Each sunrise a new chance to be crushed, devoured, or simply toyed with. Some ancient writings hint that the giants were not mindless monsters. They were teachers, but of corruption. The Watchers, their angelic fathers, had shown them forbidden arts, metalworking, enchantment, seduction. They passed these to mankind, not to enlighten, but to destroy. Men learned to forge weapons not to defend, but to dominate. They learned to charm and deceive. They learned war. This was the true infection. Knowledge without restraint. The giants' gifts rewrote humanity's destiny. Before them, man was innocent, communal, vulnerable. After them, man learned how to conquer. Even the so-called friendly giants, those who spared humans, became harbingers of ruin. They offered wisdom that led to madness, inventions that led to war. In later myths, their names survived as gods of craft, of fire, of love and chaos. Prometheus, who stole fire. Thoth, who revealed forbidden letters. Loki, the trickster who brought doom through knowledge. Different names. Same origin. The fallen ones had taught mankind their greatest secret. Power is sweetest when stolen. And from that moment on, the world would never again know peace. The irony is that the evidence of their reign still stands, scattered across the continents like bones of a forgotten age. Modern hands have measured, dated, debated, but not understood, because what they call megalithic mystery was, to the ancients, simply memory. The stones remember. They remember the vibration of footsteps that shook their foundations. They remember the screams that once echoed between them. They remember the laughter that filled the skies before the flood came. And if you listen, really listen to the wind that moves through those ruins, you might still hear it. The faint tremor of a world that once belonged to giants. Humanity survived. Barely. But the cost was more than physical. Generations later, tribes huddled in caves would whisper the same stories under new names. The Greeks called them Titans. The Celts, Fomorians. The Hindus, Daityas. The Norse, Jotnar. Across every continent, the same memory remained. Of a time when beings of enormous power walked the earth, teaching men fear, violence, and awe. They became myths. But every myth begins as truth that time has softened. And as centuries passed, humanity learned a terrible lesson from its tormentors. To survive among monsters, you must become like them. Men began building fortresses, kingdoms, empires. They raised armies. They conquered each other. The age of giants had ended, but their spirit lived on, wearing human faces. And somewhere beneath the ruins, beneath the monuments, beneath the weight of stone and time, the echoes of those first conquerors still stir. Because domination, once born into the world, never truly dies. It merely changes scale.